When my brother-in-law's wife tried to destroy me at their anniversary dinner, she had no idea I'd been planning her downfall for months. What happened next shocked everyone in that room. The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the mahogany table as I sat perfectly still, watching Victoria raise her wine glass with that familiar predatory smile. 23 guests surrounded us at her 10th wedding anniversary dinner, all dressed in their finest, completely unaware they were about to witness the most spectacular downfall I'd ever orchestrated. "Ladies and gentlemen," Victoria announced, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "I'd like to propose a toast to my dear sister-in-law Emma." She turned those calculating green eyes toward me. "The woman who's been living off my brother's generosity for 3 whole years now. Tell us, Emma, when exactly do you plan to contribute something meaningful to this family?" The table fell silent. Forks paused mid-air. Even the servers stopped moving. I could feel the heat of 23 pairs of eyes burning into my skin, waiting for my reaction, expecting me to crumble like I had so many times before. But this time was different. This time I was ready. 3 years ago, when I first married into the Wellington family, Victoria had welcomed me with open arms and a perfectly rehearsed smile. She'd pulled me aside at our wedding reception, whispering how grateful she was that her brother had finally found someone stable enough to handle his complicated nature. I should have recognized the warning signs. The way she always steered conversations toward my unemployment. How she'd accidentally mention my student loans at family dinners. The subtle digs about my background, my clothes, my inability to give them the grandchildren they desperately wanted. But it wasn't until I found those messages that everything became clear. Hidden in David's laptop, buried deep in his email drafts, was a chain of correspondence that made my blood run cold. Victoria hadn't just been talking about me behind my back. She'd been systematically destroying my reputation, my relationships, and my marriage from the inside. "She's bleeding him dry," one message read. "I've documented every penny she's cost this family. When you're ready to cut her loose, I have everything you need." Attached were spreadsheets, detailed financial records, screenshots of my personal conversations with David, somehow intercepted and twisted into evidence of my supposed greed. She'd even fabricated receipts, making it appear as though I'd been secretly spending thousands on luxury items. That night, as David slept beside me, I made a decision. If Victoria wanted to play games with evidence, I'd show her what real evidence looked like. For 6 months, I became someone else entirely. I started small, accepting Victoria's offer to help me find a job at her marketing firm. She thought she was positioning me where she could control me. Instead, I gained access to every dirty secret the Wellington family had buried. I discovered David's unreported gambling debts, Victoria's tax evasion through fake charitable donations, their father's illegal business partnerships, their mother's prescription drug addiction that Victoria had been enabling and covering up. Every family dinner became a reconnaissance mission. Every casual conversation was carefully recorded. But the real breakthrough came when I found Victoria's insurance fraud scheme. She'd been staging accidents, filing false claims, and splitting the payouts with corrupt officials. The evidence was all there in her private files. Files she'd carelessly left accessible when she asked me to update her computer. Now, as she stood there demanding applause for her cruel toast, I could see the confidence radiating from every pore. She thought she'd finally cornered me publicly, that I'd have no choice but to accept her humiliation or flee in shame. Instead, I stood up slowly, smoothing my black dress, the same dress she'd criticized as too expensive for someone unemployed, just hours earlier. "You're absolutely right, Victoria," I said, my voice steady and clear. "It is time I contributed something meaningful to this family." I reached into my purse and withdrew a manila envelope, placing it gently on the table beside her anniversary cake. "I've been working on a very special project these past few months. A comprehensive family history, you might say." Victoria's smile flickered. David shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "You see, I've discovered that this family has such fascinating stories to tell. Like how Victoria here has been running an insurance fraud operation worth over $200,000. Or how David's been hiding gambling debts that could land him in federal prison. The color drained from Victoria's face. Several guests gasped. Her wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor. But that's not even the best part, I continued, opening the envelope to reveal photographs, bank statements, and printed emails. The best part is how Victoria has spent the last 3 years trying to frame me for financial crimes while committing actual ones herself. I spread the documents across the table like a dealer revealing a winning hand. Every accusation she's made against me. Every lie she's whispered to David, to your parents, to your friends. It's all here. Along with the real evidence of where your family's money has actually been going. Victoria finally found her voice, but it came out as barely more than a whisper. You can't prove any of this. I smiled, the same predatory smile she'd perfected over the years. Actually, I already have. The FBI received copies of everything this morning. Your assets are frozen as of 3 hours ago. Your business accounts, your personal savings, even that little offshore account you thought nobody knew about. The silence in that room was absolute. Even the grandfather clock seemed to have stopped ticking. Oh, and David. I turned to my husband, whose face had turned an alarming shade of gray. Your gambling buddies downtown. The ones you've been borrowing from. They're very interested to learn that your family's money troubles aren't as private as you thought. Turns out, loan sharks don't appreciate being lied to about collateral. I gathered my purse, straightened my shoulders, and walked toward the door. At the threshold, I paused and looked back at the family that had tried so hard to destroy me. Thank you for the toast, Victoria. And congratulations on your 10th anniversary. I have a feeling it will be your last celebration for quite some time. As I stepped into the cool evening air, I could hear the chaos erupting behind me, shouting, crying, the sound of chairs scraping against hardwood as the family empire began its spectacular collapse. 3 years they'd spent tearing me down, convinced I was too weak to fight back. They'd mistaken my silence for submission, my patience for stupidity. They never realized that the quiet ones are often the most dangerous. We're the ones who listen, who remember, who wait for the perfect moment to reveal just how much we've learned. And sometimes, the perfect revenge isn't about getting even. It's about watching the truth finally set everyone free. The last thing I heard as I drove away was the sound of sirens in the distance, growing steadily louder.